My name is Emily Carter. I am 34 years old, and until last spring, I believed I had a marriage most women would envy. I believed my husband loved me. I believed loyalty still meant something. I believed the man sleeping beside me every night would never intentionally hurt me. I was wrong, and I discovered that truth because of a single phone call. A phone call that was never meant for me. If you've ever trusted someone with your entire heart only to discover they were quietly destroying your life behind your back, then stay with me. Because what happened next changed everything. Not just my marriage, not just my future, everything. The morning began like every other Wednesday, chaotic, busy, predictable. I woke up 20 minutes late because my phone battery had died overnight. The moment I opened my eyes and saw the sunlight pouring through the bedroom curtains, panic shot through my chest. I jumped out of bed. My husband, Ryan, was already awake. He stood in front of the mirror adjusting the cuffs of his navy blue dress shirt. Ryan was 36 years old, tall, confident. The type of man who could walk into a room and immediately command attention. People trusted him instantly. People admired him, including me, especially me, for nearly 9 years. He looked over his shoulder and laughed. "Running late again?" I rolled my eyes. "Don't start," he smiled, that familiar smile, the one that used to make me feel safe. The one I would later realize was hiding more secrets than I could imagine. I rushed through my morning routine. Shower, makeup, coffee, laptop, keys, everything happened in a blur. Ryan handed me a travel mug as I hurried toward the kitchen door. "You're going to forget something." "I won't. You always do." I laughed and kissed his cheek. Love you too." Funny how easily lies can sound like truth. I grabbed my phone from the kitchen counter and rushed outside. The cool morning air hit my face as I climbed into the train. Chicago was waking up around me. People hurried through crowded streets. Cars filled the roads. Coffee shops overflowed with exhausted professionals trying to survive another workday. I found an empty seat near the window. Finally, a chance to breathe. The train pulled away from the station. I opened my handbag and reached for my phone, except it wasn't my phone. The wallpaper staring back at me was a picture of Ryan standing beside a golf cart. My stomach dropped. I had grabbed his phone by mistake. We had identical phone cases. Matching black leather covers he had bought months earlier. At the time, I thought it was sweet. Now I realize how ironic it was. I stared at the screen. For a moment, I considered calling him. Then I checked the time. He would already be halfway to his office. I figured I'd simply return it later. No big deal. At least that's what I thought. Then the phone rang. The screen lit up. Incoming call. Ashley, Ryan's younger sister. Ashley and I had never been particularly close. She was 31, impulsive, materialistic. The kind of person who always seemed to have financial problems, despite constantly showing off expensive purchases online. Every family gathering somehow turned into a conversation about money. Usually money she needed from someone else. I assumed she was calling Ryan about another problem. Without thinking, I answered, "Hey, Ashley." Silence, for 2 full seconds. Then I heard her sharp intake of breath. My eyebrows pulled together, something immediately felt wrong. "Emily?" she asked. "Yeah." Another pause, a much longer one. My heart began beating slightly faster. Not because I suspected anything, not yet, but because people don't react like that unless something is wrong. "Ryan left his phone at home," I explained. "I grabbed it by accident." The train rattled over the tracks. Ashley still wasn't speaking. The silence felt strange, uncomfortable, heavy. Then she finally whispered something. Something that instantly changed the atmosphere around me. "Oh no," my grip tightened around the phone. "What?" Nothing, no answer, just breathing, slow, uneasy breathing. "Ashley," she hesitated. Then she said the words that would destroy my life. "You weren't supposed to answer." I felt ice spread through my chest. "What do you mean?" More silence. Then she spoke again, quietly. Almost nervously. "Forget I called." My pulse accelerated. "Ashley," no response. "Ashley, what's going on?" The train entered a tunnel. Darkness flashed across the windows. When she finally answered, her voice sounded completely different, scared. Emily, just don't look at the account. I froze. What account? The call disconnected, just like that, gone. The line went dead. I stared at the phone. My reflection stared back from the dark screen. For several seconds I couldn't move, couldn't think, couldn't breathe properly. What account? What had she meant? Why was she scared? And why wasn't I supposed to answer? Questions exploded through my mind. I tried convincing myself there was a reasonable explanation. There had to be. Ryan handled some of our household finances. Maybe Ashley borrowed money. Maybe she accidentally revealed something private. Maybe there was a surprise party, an anniversary gift, anything. But deep inside, a small voice had already started whispering. Something is wrong, very wrong. The train emerged from the tunnel. Sunlight flooded the carriage. Around me, people continued scrolling their phones, drinking coffee, living their ordinary lives. Meanwhile, mine had just stopped feeling ordinary. I looked down at Ryan's phone. For the first time in 9 years, I felt something I had never felt before. Suspicion. I hated it. I hated what it implied. I hated what it suggested. Most of all, I hated that I couldn't ignore it. I pressed the power button. The lock screen appeared. Passcode required. Of course. Ryan changed his password months earlier. He claimed his company required additional security protocols. At the time, I didn't question it. Now I wondered why. I stared at the screen, then I closed my eyes. Ryan wasn't creative. He never had been. He reused passwords constantly. Birthdays. Favorite sports numbers. Important dates. Predictable things. The kind of things husbands assume wives never notice. I entered 6 digits. The phone unlocked immediately. My stomach dropped. A strange feeling washed over me, like I had just crossed a line I could never uncross. A line between trust and truth, between ignorance and reality. I didn't know it yet. But within the next hour, I would uncover the first piece of a betrayal that had been growing for years. And once I saw it, there would be no going back. I stared at Ryan's unlocked phone while the train continued speeding toward downtown Chicago. My heartbeat felt unnaturally loud. Every instinct told me to lock the screen and put the phone away. To pretend none of this had happened, to trust my husband, but Ashley's voice kept echoing in my head. Don't look at the account. Not an account, the account. As if she already knew exactly which one I would find. As if she was terrified I would finally discover something. My fingers hovered over the screen. For a moment, I closed my eyes. 9 years. 9 years of marriage. 9 years of trust. 9 years of believing Ryan and I were building a future together. Surely one strange phone call couldn't erase all of that. Right. I opened the banking application. The app immediately requested facial recognition. Ryan's smiling face appeared on the lock screen. The phone unlocked automatically. I swallowed hard. The first account looked normal. Our shared checking account. Mortgage payments, utility bills, grocery purchases, nothing unusual. I almost laughed at myself. Maybe I was overreacting. Maybe Ashley's call truly had been about something harmless. Then I noticed another account, one I had never seen before. My stomach tightened. The account wasn't connected to our shared finances. It was separate, private, hidden. I tapped it. The balance appeared. My breath caught in my throat. $218,000. I blinked, then blinked again. The number didn't change. $218,000. A separate account. An account I had never heard about. An account Ryan had never mentioned. I felt a strange pressure building inside my chest. Ryan and I discussed everything financial. Or at least I thought we did. We had goals, plans, budgets. We talked about retirement, investments, vacation funds, future children. So why did he have a secret account containing more money than many people earned in years? My hands trembled slightly. Then I opened the transaction history. And everything became worse. Much worse. Large transfers appeared every month. $10,000, $12,000, $8,000, $15,000. The money wasn't being deposited, it was being withdrawn. Transferred elsewhere, repeatedly, systematically. For nearly 3 years, I stared at the screen. The names of the receiving accounts meant nothing to me. Most appeared under business entities. holding companies, private accounts, names I didn't recognize. The train began slowing as it approached the next station. People stood and gathered their bags. Meanwhile, I felt frozen in place. Something was terribly wrong. I opened the transfer details. The first recipient appeared, ML Holdings. The second, Monica Lewis. My stomach dropped. Monica. The same name repeated again and again. And again, over 3 years, thousands upon thousands of dollars. I had never heard Ryan mention Monica, not once, not ever, yet somehow she had received enough money to purchase a luxury home. I immediately opened the search function. Hundreds of messages appeared. Text messages, emails, photos, documents, everything connected to Monica. My breathing became shallow. The train doors opened. People exited. New passengers entered. I barely noticed. Because at that moment, my entire world existed inside that phone. I opened the message thread. The most recent conversation sat at the top. Ryan, I'll transfer the rest next week. Monica, the school payment is due Friday. Ryan, I'll handle it. Monica, you always do. Then a heart emoji. My vision blurred. I scrolled upward. Further, months, years, thousands of messages. The conversation wasn't professional. It wasn't friendly. It wasn't casual. It was intimate, painfully intimate. Inside jokes. Private conversations, vacation photos, late-night messages, declarations of affection, promises, plans, dreams, everything a husband should be sharing with his wife. Except he wasn't sharing them with me. He was sharing them with Monica. I felt physically ill. The train station announcement echoed overhead. I barely heard it. My attention locked onto a photograph attached near the top of the conversation. A little boy, 3 years old, maybe 4, dark hair, bright eyes, a huge smile. I stared at the image. Then at Ryan's profile picture. My blood turned cold. The resemblance was undeniable. The same eyes, the same nose, the same smile, the same face. No, I zoomed in, hoping I was imagining it. Praying I was wrong, but I wasn't. The child looked exactly like Ryan. My chest tightened. A terrifying realization slowly formed. I opened another photograph, then another, and another. Birthday parties, family dinners, park outings, Christmas celebrations. Monica, the little boy, Ryan together, smiling, laughing, living a life, a complete life. A second life. One I had never known existed. I felt the train come to a stop. My station, I didn't move, couldn't move. My entire body felt numb. The little boy sat on Ryan's shoulders in one photograph. In another, Ryan was helping him ride a bicycle. In another, they stood together beside a Christmas tree, father and son. The evidence screamed the truth, even before DNA, even before confirmation. Even before logic. A woman knows. Deep down, a woman knows, and I knew. The little boy was Ryan's son, which meant the affair wasn't recent. It wasn't a mistake. It wasn't temporary. It wasn't some brief lapse in judgment. This had been happening for years, while I sat at home believing my marriage was real, while I defended him to friends. While I worked late nights helping build our future, Ryan had been building another family. The train doors closed again. I remained seated, staring at the screen. Then something caught my attention. A photograph from 6 months earlier. A family gathering. I zoomed in. My heart stopped. Ashley was there, Ryan's sister, smiling, standing beside Monica. Another photo, Ryan's parents, there too. Another photo, Christmas dinner. Everyone together, everyone smiling, everyone celebrating, the entire family. My stomach twisted violently. The affair wasn't a secret, not to them, they all knew. Every single one of them. The family dinners, the holidays, the birthdays, the vacations, all those moments where they smiled at me, hugged me, sat across from me at dinner. They knew. And nobody said a word, not one word. The betrayal suddenly became much larger than Ryan, much larger. This wasn't one liar. This was an entire family protecting a lie. An entire family helping maintain a deception. An entire family watching me live inside a fantasy they knew wasn't real. I looked out the train window. Chicago's skyline stretched across the horizon. Cold, sharp, beautiful. For the first time that morning, tears filled my eyes. Not because of Monica, not because of the money, not even because of the affair, but because of the humiliation. The realization that I had been the only person who didn't know, the only fool in the room, the only person still believing the marriage existed. A single tear rolled down my cheek. I quickly wiped it away, then another followed, then another. For several minutes I sat there silently crying while strangers walked past me without noticing. Eventually, the tears stopped. And something else took their place. Clarity, cold, sharp, dangerous clarity. I locked the phone, slipped it back into my purse, and stood up. Because at that moment I understood something important. If I confronted Ryan now, he would lie. If I screamed, he would deny. If I cried, he would manipulate. No, that wasn't what I needed. I needed answers. All of them. I needed evidence. Every piece. I needed the full truth. And most importantly, I needed Ryan to keep believing I knew nothing. Because the moment he realized I had discovered his secret life, the game would change. And I wasn't ready to show my cards yet. Not even close. As I stepped off the train and walked toward my office building, Ryan sent a text message. "Hey beautiful, hope your morning is going well." "Love you Red." I stared at the screen. Then I laughed. A quiet laugh. The kind that comes when something is so absurd it no longer feels real. The kind of laugh a woman makes when her heart is breaking, but her mind is already planning. Because Ryan had no idea what I had discovered. And what he didn't know was that his perfect little secret was about to become the biggest mistake of his life. That evening, I walked through the front door of our house carrying a secret that could destroy my entire marriage. And Ryan had absolutely no idea. He was standing in the kitchen when I arrived. Cooking dinner, smiling, looking exactly like the husband I thought I knew. The sight almost made me sick. Because only a few hours earlier, I had seen photographs of him celebrating Christmas with another woman and a little boy who looked exactly like him. Yet there he stood, acting normal. Acting innocent, acting like he wasn't living a double life. "Hey, beautiful." He walked over and kissed my forehead, the same forehead he had kissed thousands of times before. The same forehead he had kissed while lying to me. "You okay?" he asked. I forced a smile. "Long day." His expression softened. "You work too hard." The irony nearly broke me. I wanted to scream. I wanted to throw his phone across the room. I wanted to demand answers. Instead, I wrapped my arms around him and hugged him, not because I loved him in that moment, but because I needed him to believe I knew nothing. Ryan hugged me back, completely unaware that the woman standing in his arms had already discovered the truth. The entire truth, or so I thought. Because I was about to learn something even worse. That night, after Ryan fell asleep, I quietly slipped out of bed. The house was silent. The digital clock on the nightstand read 2:13 a.m. I carried my laptop downstairs and sat at the dining room table. Then I began digging. For years, I had handled much of our paperwork: taxes, insurance, mortgage records, investment statements. I knew where everything was stored, and now I wanted answers, real answers. The first few hours revealed exactly what I expected: hidden transactions, missing funds, undisclosed accounts. Enough financial deception to make my stomach turn. But around 4 in the morning, I discovered something that changed everything: a property record. At first, it seemed ordinary. Then I saw the address. The same address listed in one of Ryan's message threads with Monica. An expensive townhouse located nearly 40 minutes from our home. I opened the ownership details. My breath caught. Ryan's name wasn't listed. Neither was Monica's. The property belonged to a private trust, one that had been established nearly 5 years earlier. 5 years. Long before I ever suspected anything. I opened the trust documents, and that's when I saw another familiar name. Ashley, Ryan's sister. She wasn't just aware of the secret. She was actively helping hide it. My pulse quickened. I kept reading. Then I found Ryan's parents. Their names appeared too, not as beneficiaries, as trustees. The room suddenly felt colder. The betrayal became larger, much larger. The affair wasn't simply being hidden, it was being protected, organized, maintained. His entire family had participated, every holiday, every gathering. Every dinner, every smile, every hug, every conversation, all of it had been built on deception. I leaned back in my chair, staring at the screen, trying to process what I was seeing. I thought discovering another woman would be the worst part. I thought learning about the child would be the hardest truth. But this felt different. This felt deeper. Because betrayal from one person hurts. Betrayal from an entire family changes how you see humanity itself. The next morning, I barely slept, yet somehow I still went to work, still smiled, still answered emails, still attended meetings. Meanwhile, my mind never stopped moving. Every memory felt suspicious now, every family gathering, every conversation, every moment. I started replaying years of my life through a completely different lens. Then something suddenly clicked. 3 summers earlier, Ryan's family reunion. I remembered arriving late because of work. When I got there, everyone had seemed unusually tense, almost nervous. At the time, I assumed I was imagining things. Now I wasn't so sure. Another memory surfaced. Thanksgiving, 2 years earlier. Ryan had disappeared for nearly 3 hours. He claimed he was helping a friend with car trouble. His mother had looked uncomfortable the entire evening. At the time, I ignored it. Now it made sense. One memory after another began connecting together like pieces of a puzzle, and every piece pointed toward the same truth. I had been lied to for years, not weeks, not months, years. That realization changed something inside me. The heartbreak remained, the pain remained, but the grief slowly began transforming into determination. For 9 years, I had been reacting to Ryan's choices, following his plans, trusting his decisions, believing his stories. That chapter was over. Now I was the one making decisions. And my first decision was simple. I needed proof. Enough proof that nobody could deny what happened. Not Ryan, not Monica, not his family. Nobody. Over the next 2 weeks, I became someone I barely recognized. Calm, focused, patient, I copied financial records, saved messages, downloaded photographs, archived emails, collected legal documents, built timelines, organized evidence. Every night after Ryan went to sleep, I worked, hour after hour, day after day. The more evidence I found, the worse the truth became. Ryan hadn't simply supported Monica. He had purchased a car for her, paid private school tuition, covered medical expenses, funded vacations. And every dollar came from resources he claimed belonged to our future. Our savings, our investments, our plans. One evening, while reviewing older records, I found a video. A simple family video. 37 seconds long. At first, I almost ignored it. Then I pressed play. The footage showed a birthday party. Children running around, balloons, cake, laughter. Then the camera shifted. And there he was, Ryan, holding the little boy, smiling proudly. Someone behind the camera laughed and said, "Look at father and son." The room spun. Father and son, not an assumption. Not speculation, not a possibility. Confirmation, direct confirmation. I paused the video, then replayed it. Again, 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 each time feeling another piece of my marriage crumble. The little boy was his son. There was no longer any doubt. And suddenly I understood why Ryan had worked so hard to protect the secret. Because this wasn't an affair. This wasn't a mistake. This wasn't a temporary relationship. This was a second family, a completely separate life, one he never intended to leave, one he planned to maintain forever. The realization hurt more than anything else, because it meant Ryan hadn't been choosing between Monica and me. He had already chosen. Years ago, I simply wasn't informed. That night, I sat alone in my car after work, watching the sunset, watching the city lights slowly come alive, thinking about the woman I used to be, the woman who trusted blindly, the woman who believed loyalty guaranteed safety. That woman was disappearing, and someone stronger was taking her place, someone who understood that trust must be earned. Someone who understood that love without honesty becomes manipulation. Someone who understood that justice sometimes requires patience. I wasn't planning revenge anymore. not exactly. I was planning accountability, consequences, truth. Ryan had spent years controlling the narrative, years deciding what everyone would know, years deciding which version of reality I was allowed to see. Now it was my turn, and what Ryan didn't know was that I had just uncovered one final secret. A secret hidden inside the trust documents. A secret involving money, a lot of money, enough money to change everything. Enough money to destroy the carefully constructed world Ryan had spent years building. And once I verified what I had found, there would be no saving him. By the beginning of the third week, I had stopped crying. That surprised me more than anything. When I first discovered Ryan's secret life, I thought the pain would consume me. I thought I would spend weeks locked in my bedroom, unable to function, unable to think, unable to breathe. Instead, something else happened. The more truth I uncovered, the less emotional I became. Not because the betrayal hurt less, but because the lies were so massive that eventually my shock turned into clarity. Every new piece of evidence removed another illusion. Every secret exposed another layer of deception. And eventually, there was nothing left to mourn. Because the marriage I thought I had never actually existed, I had been grieving a fantasy. A fantasy Ryan carefully created. A fantasy his family helped maintain. And now that fantasy was gone. The woman sitting at my dining room table each night wasn't the same woman who answered Ashley's phone call on the train. That woman had trusted. This woman investigated. This woman prepared. This woman planned. And I was about to make a move Ryan would never see coming. The final secret hidden inside the trust documents took several days to verify. At first, I thought I had misunderstood. The numbers didn't make sense. The ownership percentages seemed impossible. The signatures looked strange, so I contacted an attorney, quietly, privately, without telling anyone, especially Ryan. 3 days later, I sat inside a downtown law office listening to a woman named Rebecca explain exactly what I had discovered. I will never forget her expression. She looked shocked, then impressed, then angry on my behalf. Finally, she leaned forward and asked a question. "Your husband doesn't know you've seen this." I shook my head. "No," Rebecca slowly exhaled. "Good." That single word immediately got my attention. Good. Not unfortunate, not complicated. Good. "What does that mean?" I asked. She slid the documents across the desk. "Emily, your husband made a serious mistake." My pulse quickened. "What kind of mistake?" Rebecca pointed towards several pages. "The trust." I stared at the paperwork. She continued. "Ryan spent years moving money into this structure because he believed it protected his assets." I nodded. "So?" She smiled slightly. "Unfortunately for him, he wasn't nearly as careful as he thought." My heart started racing. Rebecca explained everything. Years earlier, Ryan had created the trust with the help of his parents and sister. The goal was simple: hide assets, protect property, maintain financial control over his secret life. The problem: part of the money used to fund those assets originated directly from marital accounts. Accounts shared by both of us. Accounts documented under both names, which meant something extremely important. Legally, much of what Ryan believed belonged exclusively to him didn't. My breath caught. Rebecca looked directly at me. "Emily, if the evidence supports what I'm seeing here, you may have rights to a significant portion of these assets." Significant. The word barely captured the reality. We weren't talking about a savings account. We weren't talking about a vehicle. We were talking about properties, investments, business interests, hundreds of thousands of dollars, possibly more. Ryan had spent years secretly building a second life. And in doing so, he had accidentally created evidence that could expose everything. I left that meeting feeling something I hadn't felt since the phone call. Hope, not because of money. Money wasn't the point. The point was accountability. For years, Ryan believed he was smarter than everyone else. He believed rules didn't apply to him. He believed he could manipulate reality without consequences. Now consequences were coming. And they were coming fast. The next phase required patience, more patience than I thought I possessed. For nearly a month, I continued pretending everything was normal. Dinner together, movie nights, weekend errands, family gatherings. I smiled, laughed, played my role perfectly. Meanwhile, Ryan continued lying. Every day, without hesitation, without guilt, without remorse. Sometimes I would sit across from him at dinner and wonder how he did it. How could someone tell so many lies so easily? How could someone look directly into another person's eyes and betray them repeatedly? The answer finally came one evening. People like Ryan stop seeing lies as lies. They start seeing them as tools. And once someone reaches that point, they become dangerous. Because they no longer feel responsible for the damage they cause. They only care about protecting themselves. That realization removed the last bit of sympathy I still had for him. Then came the family barbecue. The event that changed everything. Ryan's parents hosted it every summer. Relatives traveled from different states. Friends attended. Neighbors stopped by. Nearly 40 people filled the backyard. It was exactly the kind of gathering Ryan loved. The perfect audience. The perfect stage. The perfect environment for pretending everything was wonderful. I arrived carrying a smile. Ryan arrived carrying confidence. Neither of us knew the day would end the same way. Throughout the afternoon, I watched carefully. I observed everyone. His mother, his father, Ashley, their conversations, their expressions, their interactions. And for the first time, I noticed things I had missed before. The nervous glances, the subtle tension, the uncomfortable moments whenever certain topics appeared. They knew, every one of them knew. And they knew I didn't, or at least they thought I didn't. Watching them felt surreal, like observing actors performing a play, everyone memorizing lines, everyone protecting the same secret. Everyone pretending. By sunset, I was certain of one thing: the truth needed witnesses. Not just documents, not just lawyers, witnesses, people who could no longer deny reality. People who would be forced to confront what they helped create. That's when I finalized my plan. Not revenge, exposure, truth, complete and undeniable truth. The following week, Rebecca called. Her voice sounded excited. "Emily, we finished reviewing everything." I immediately sat upright. "What did you find?" There was a pause, then she spoke. "More than we expected." My pulse accelerated. "How much more?" Another pause, then she answered. "The trust isn't worth hundreds of thousands." I frowned. For a moment, I thought I had misunderstood. Then Rebecca finished the sentence. "It's worth over $2 million. The room spun. $2 million. I nearly dropped the phone. For several seconds, I couldn't speak. $2 million. Hidden, moved, protected, buried beneath years of deception. Money connected directly to Ryan's secret life. Money his family helped conceal. Money partially built using assets that legally involved me. The scale of the betrayal suddenly became even larger than I imagined. This wasn't just emotional dishonesty. This wasn't just infidelity. This was years of calculated deception. Years, and now every piece was documented, verified, organized, ready. Rebecca asked a simple question. "When are you planning to file?" I looked out my office window. The city stretched beneath me. Cars moved through crowded streets. People hurried through their lives. Completely unaware that mine was about to explode. I thought about Ryan. The lies, the manipulation, the second family, the stolen future. Then I thought about the little boy. An innocent child caught inside a web of secrets created by adults. For a moment, sadness washed over me. Not for Ryan, not anymore, for everyone damaged by his choices. Then the sadness faded. And determination returned. "Soon," I said. Rebecca was quiet. Then she asked, "Are you ready?" I looked at the folder sitting on my desk. Thousands of pages, years of evidence. Every lie documented, every secret exposed, every betrayal recorded. For the first time since answering that phone call, I smiled, a real smile, because Ryan still believed he was in control. He still believed his secret life was protected. He still believed nobody could touch what he built. But he was wrong, terribly wrong, because the moment I filed those papers, the moment the truth became public, his carefully constructed world would begin collapsing. and there would be absolutely nothing he could do to stop it. The day I filed for divorce felt strangely peaceful, not because I was happy, not because I wasn't hurting, but because the uncertainty was finally over. For weeks, I had lived between two worlds. The world Ryan thought existed, and the world I had discovered. Now those worlds were about to collide, and once they did, nothing would ever be the same again. Ryan was sitting in the living room when I got home that evening. The television played quietly in the background, a basketball game neither of us was actually watching. He looked up and smiled. The same smile, the same familiar expression, the same man who believed his secrets were safe. Hey, hey, I set my purse down. My heart remained surprisingly calm, no shaking hands. No racing pulse, no fear, just certainty. For nearly 6 weeks I had prepared for this moment, and now it had finally arrived. Ryan stood and walked toward me. "Everything okay?" I nodded. "Actually, I need to talk to you." His expression changed slightly. Nothing dramatic, just enough for me to notice. A flicker of concern. We sat down across from each other. The room felt quiet. Too quiet, I reached into my purse and removed a large envelope. Then I placed it on the coffee table. Ryan frowned. "What's that?" I looked directly into his eyes. The same eyes I once trusted completely. "Open it," he laughed nervously. "Okay." Ryan opened the envelope, pulled out the documents, read the first page, then froze. The color disappeared from his face. For several seconds he simply stared, unable to move, unable to speak, unable to process what he was seeing. Finally, he looked up. "What is this?" I remained calm. "You know exactly what it is." His eyes widened. The silence that followed felt endless. Then came the denial, exactly as I expected. "Emily, listen. No. Let me explain." "No." His breathing became uneven. Panic. For the first time since I had known him, Ryan looked genuinely afraid, not worried, afraid. Because deep down, he already knew. He knew I wouldn't be sitting there unless I had discovered everything. Still, he tried. Of course he tried. People like Ryan always try. "It's not what you think." I almost laughed. That sentence, the universal language of guilty people. I slowly slid another folder across the table. His hands trembled as he opened it. Bank records. Property documents, trust agreements. Photos, messages, transfer histories. Every piece of evidence carefully organized. Every lie documented. Every secret exposed. The moment Ryan saw the first few pages, I watched something happen inside him. Hope disappeared. He knew the game was over. The next hour was one of the strangest experiences of my life. Because Ryan cycled through every possible reaction. Denial, excuses, blame, regret, apologies, promises, manipulation, fear, all of it. He claimed he loved me. He claimed he never wanted to hurt me. He claimed things had become complicated. But every explanation sounded empty, because none of it addressed the real issue. The issue wasn't Monica. The issue wasn't even the affair. The issue was choice. Every single day Ryan woke up and chose deception. Every single day. For years, that wasn't a mistake. That was a decision, a repeated decision, and decisions have consequences. Eventually, he stopped talking, because there was nothing left to say. The evidence was overwhelming. The truth was undeniable. The marriage was over. 3 days later, Ryan's family started calling. First his mother, then his father, then Ashley, one after another. Messages, voicemails, emails, requests to talk, requests to explain, requests to work things out. The irony was incredible. For years they had protected the lie. Now they wanted honesty. For years they had watched me live in ignorance. Now they wanted understanding. I didn't respond. Because I finally understood something important. People rarely apologize because they hurt you. They apologize because the consequences finally reached them, and consequences were reaching everyone. Fast, the legal process moved forward. Slowly, painfully, but steadily. As more financial records emerged, the truth became impossible to hide. Assets, properties, investments, accounts. Everything connected together. The secret life Ryan spent years building became visible, not just to lawyers, not just to family, to everyone involved. The image he spent years creating began falling apart piece by piece. Friends learned the truth. Business associates learned the truth. Relatives learned the truth. The carefully crafted version of Ryan that everyone admired started disappearing. And for the first time, people saw reality, not the performance, the reality. Several months later, I received unexpected news. Monica had left. At first, I didn't believe it. Then the confirmation came, without the money, without the secrets, without the illusion. The relationship collapsed. The very thing Ryan sacrificed everything to protect eventually disappeared anyway. I remember sitting in my kitchen reading that message and feeling absolutely nothing. No satisfaction, no joy, no victory, just acceptance. Because by then I had learned something important. Life creates its own consequences. Eventually, maybe not immediately, maybe not when we want. But eventually, the final divorce hearing lasted less than an hour. 9 years of marriage, reduced to paperwork, signatures, legal language, a few final decisions. Then it was done, officially. Legally, completely done, I walked out of the courthouse into bright afternoon sunlight. For a moment I simply stood there, breathing, listening, feeling, free, not because everything was fixed. It wasn't. Healing still takes time. Trust still takes time. Recovery still takes time. But freedom begins the moment truth replaces illusion. And for the first time in years, I was living inside the truth. A year later, my life looked completely different. I moved into a new home, started a new career opportunity, made new friends. Traveled, laughed again, dreamed again, lived again. Most importantly, I learned to trust myself again, because betrayal does something dangerous. It makes you question your judgment, your instincts, your worth, your reality. But healing teaches you the opposite. Healing teaches you that someone else's deception is not a reflection of your value. It is a reflection of theirs. And once I understood that, everything changed. Sometimes people ask me if I regret discovering the truth. My answer is always the same: no. Because painful truth is still better than comfortable lies. Every single time. If I had never answered Ryan's phone that morning, I might still be living inside a fantasy. Still believing a story that wasn't real. Still sacrificing my future for someone who never deserved it. Instead, one unexpected phone call gave me something priceless: the truth. And the truth gave me my life back. So if you're listening to this while going through betrayal, if someone you trusted has shattered your heart, remember this: being betrayed is painful. But staying trapped inside a lie is worse. Sometimes the worst day of your life becomes the first day of your freedom, and sometimes the ending you never wanted becomes the beginning you desperately needed. That phone call destroyed my marriage, but it also saved me, and looking back now, I wouldn't change a thing.